was I ended up having breast cancer, but it caused a whole lot of scar tissue in the lymphatic area. So when I actually had my mastectomy, the doctor I wanted to do a double one because I just didn't want to risk it coming on the other side. And so she was like, she would spend so much time under my armpit trying to find lymph nodes to make sure there were no more involvement, that she didn't want me to be under that long because I was very overweight. And so I had to just move with what her suggestion was, because again, I had limited information. I had never really been sick and I was so scared. And
Right.
so I just said, okay.
Right.
And so when I had the surgery, the oddest thing happened to me. And I had surgeries prior to this. I woke up screaming.
Mm,
It was the loudest scream ever.
mm.
And what I've come to know is you have to be very careful who you choose as your doctor, because the energy of that person, they're inside of you.
Come on
And
now. Let me pause you because
she
now
wasn't,
we went from I'm scared of this crazy woman who's talking about energy to this woman who understands the energy of the person who's working on you, right?
yeah.
This is important. So I want to shift a little bit and talk a bit about finding the right medical person, because this
Mm.
we could go on for hours talking about this
We could.
in the Black community. Not only is there, of course, the history of Black people, most people don't
Mm.
realize that the reason why we have such incredible advances in medicine in America is because we experimented on Black people. And it wasn't just the Tuskegee experiments, right?
That's right.
It wasn't just that women
Right.
were experimented on. I mean, there we could go on and on about how Black people were experimented on. And so for that reason, Black people don't really like going to the doctor. And when we go to the doctor, we
Right.
are met with people who have definitely horrible bedside manner, right?
Yep.
They talk us into surgery a lot faster. They don't give us all the information, and there's not a support system, right? And they always do a good job.
Correct.
So it's hard for us to learn how to advocate. And so you're scared. You have all these things going on. What would you say to Black people or people of color in general who are trying to advocate for their health? Now, in hindsight, right, which is 2020, that you should not have just said, okay, let's just cut it all out because they said, let's just cut it all out, right? You know that
Right.
now.
That's
You
right.
would not have known that. And so if you can help someone in the future who may be listening from, anywhere in the world, what would you say to them about finding the right medical team to support you? This is really important.
It really is. Do your research, because and even within the research, I mean, because some people don't know what a good doctoring is. So if you're nice to them, they think that's good doctoring. But good doctoring is being honest. Good doctoring is being straightforward. Good doctoring is being kind and including you, the person who they're practicing on, into the partnership. Because a lot of times, what I didn't feel was a partnership. It was like it was more external force.
Hmm.
And so with that, as you're doing your research, those stars don't mean anything. Trust me. If you got a 5-star doctor, sometimes it does, but sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
You
Right.
want to
Because
you want to.
education doesn't mean that you're a good practitioner. You can be really smart
That's
and
right.
a horrible practitioner, right? So that's
Absolutely.
really important.
Yeah. So for instance, my doctor, he was a good oncology doctor, but he had horrible bedside manner. So can you imagine me being in the most tender state in my life, being afraid? Everything in me is alive because my body is dying. So it's aware. My organs are like, hey, what's up? I'm confused. My whole body was so confused. But he had the worst bedside manner ever. He
Mm,
talked to me any kind of way. So that, you know, but even if you join like a support group, like if you have some, whatever your issue is, if you seek different support groups, they have so much information. And most of them are talking about doctors, hospitals, the type of treatment they had, their emotional state. It's all types of information. But do your research. And I want to say, I don't know what avenue is where you would find this information, but find out if there were any complaints on the doctor.
Yes.
Because that is very important, because most those complaints, most times they're not obvious. You have to actually seek and
Right.
find them.
Right.
Because, you know, people's voices are speaking.
Right.
Some people don't play that.
That's true. And, you know, it's hard to do all of that. And I want to acknowledge it's very hard to do all of this when you're scared, right? When you don't know where to go, and you have people in your ear saying, just do what the doctor says. And you don't realize, first of all, the doctors work for you, not the other way around. So if they don't treat you properly, you fire them and you find someone else. No one goes to the store and says, I'm just going to go buy a car, or I'm just going to go buy, you know, whatever, without getting in the car, driving the car. Do I like the car? You know, that type of thing. You have to do that with your medical team as well. You have to, I would suggest having even questions that you ask them to see what their style is, right?
Okay. So, yeah, so I had questions for my cancer doctor. So this is what I did. I was at Loveless, so I was diagnosed. They called me on the phone to tell me I had cancer, first of all, which was very rude. And it just made me feel like I was a nothing. You called me on the phone to tell me I had something that could kill me in my body. And to me, it sounded maybe she was afraid to face me while I was facing it.
Right.
And so, but I was through Loveless Hospital, I met a patient navigator. Now, this is so important. Patient navigators are the bomb. So I met a patient navigator, and she like connected me with an organization called Breast Cancer Resource Center, where I first met you.
Right.
And through that organization, I met a beautiful woman who's the director, named Jahan Martin.
Just a moment.
I'm sorry.
Jahan. Yes. Jahan passed away, but she did such beautiful work, just beautiful, beautiful work to help people actively engage in self-care and recover from cancer. So we just send love and light, that she will always be remembered. She will always be loved.
Yes, she was. She was the only thing African Americans had who were battling cancer in Albuquerque. But anyway, she took me under her wing, and she became my advocate. And so she said, I'll go to your appointments with you. And because I was telling her I was dealing with some job information, like workplace stuff, because I was fighting cancer and my former job at the same time. And so that created a real negative environment. However, she went to my appointment with me. I had 15 questions. Okay. She came in to take notes because that was what I wanted. Well, my doctor found that offensive. He told me if I felt like they weren't doing a good job, to find another hospital.
Wow.
I said, I'm not trying to attack you. I'm just trying to find out about me. And finally, when I really explained it to him in a more holistic way, he felt bad. So then after he listened to my questions, he started connecting me to services, because they were not going to connect me with anything except for chemotherapy and radiation and their medicine. I didn't have a patient navigator. I didn't know anything about counseling. I didn't know anything. And what I didn't know is, being a Black woman in the cancer journey was like the biggest sin ever. It's like they just treat you like a project, like, oh, just get them in there and get them out, unless you have some type of authority. But for me, it was absolutely, the beginning was, it just wasn't a nice process. I mean, and I had cancer. The thing that people would be like, well, let me give you a hug. These people were abusive
Yeah.
almost,
This is very important
you know.
to notice, because this is the cancer, this is the journey that most, the story that you've told me, I wish I could say was the only story that I've heard, but every Black person that I've worked with to help them through cancer have told me a story like this. It's
Yeah.
devastating for me to hear. And I'm going to pause here because I want to say something, and then I want to shift into how you moved into the healing process. I just want people that are listening to understand this is what we go through, right? Um, we should never be in a position where a doctor is offended because you asked a question, right? And and that Black people are put in this situation where we're afraid to ask questions. We're already afraid
Yeah.
because we're ill and we don't have anyone to advocate for us, and we don't realize that there's so many other answers out there that they even can connect us with, but are unwilling to do so because they just want to get us in, cut us up, and push us out the door, right? And this is something that has to be talked about and addressed in the community. So go ahead, I'm sorry.
It does. And I just want to pause for a minute and say this too. I mean, we didn't know any really too much about our bodies because we weren't considered people.
Right.
And I promise you, even though they said slavery ended years ago, it hasn't. It hasn't for our people. And people are like, when you gonna stop talking about it? When you treat me like a person,
Right. Right.
that's when.
When you
When I am
humanize,
not seen as a color and
that's
seen as a character,
right, right,
that's when it'll
right.
stop. But so yeah, I just wanted to pause and say that because
Thank you.
that's important even for our own community
Yeah.
to understand that
Mhm.
we have mending to do because we are America. Everything in us comes from every nation. We are America. We are the idea that they say they had, but we were a project, and it was like we were some failed project because then we were left in the wind and to figure it out. So
And we're
that's where
still
we are with
healing.
that.
We're still healing
Yeah,
from,
we're still healing.
and we're still learning to to in, advocate for ourselves and actively engage in our own self-care, and we have to do that in the midst, in the absolute midst of this abusive treatment, right?
Yeah.
That a lot of people experience, and so it's so important to speak up for yourself and to have someone there to advocate for you. And so I do want to shift into the your journey to healing, in how you got
Yes.
there. But before I do that, I want to say something as a transition, because I think it's important to say. So I've worked with a lot of people who have gone through cancer treatment and have had mastectomies and so forth. And I teach women how to, you know, move through and work scar tissue, right? And so that's kind
Yes.
of the point where I want to connect with. And the reason why I want to say this now is because in order for me to teach a woman how to work their scar tissue, with a tool that's called a Gua Sha, we'll talk about that, maybe in other conversations. But the reason why I want to talk about that is because every single white patient, or for me, it's a client, every single white client that I had that was a cancer patient that came to me to learn this technique, every single one of them had these beautiful cuts, this reconstructed breast that was just, you can tell that there was surgery, right? But there was a real effort to make the person look, almost like they did before. And
Right.
every single Black woman that I worked with, when they opened their shirt and I saw the jagged cuts, the blatant disrespect for the body. I mean, for me, it's something that it's difficult. It's difficult for me to talk about. It's difficult for me to accept as truth, but I have to because I've seen it with my own eyes. And so this has to change. this has to change. And I remember very
Yes.
well having a conversation with a doctor once where I said to him, I said, "You see what I look like?" And he goes, "Yes." And I said, "Look carefully, because when you're done, I need to look just like this." Right? You know,
Yes.
so I set my expectations. And so we shouldn't have to do that, but we do. And so you and I began to work on, what does it take to get you back to yourself? And what I saw that
Right.
I'm not sure if you saw at the time was that there was this incredibly beautiful person that wanted to come out, that has a voice. And, and I was so excited because I could see the potential in you. You didn't see any of that, right? You were just like, I want to
Yeah.
figure out how to feel better. So tell me,
Right.
and tell the audience a bit about what that journey was. You have now gone through the surgery, you were treated horribly, your body was marred. You come to me now. How did you get to this place where you are now, where we're having this conversation?
Okay. So while at UNMH Hospital, they have a cancer center. And they also have a healing center. What is it called? And I should know, I was on the board. What is it called? I forgot what the little center is called, but and I feel bad about that because I was on the board. However, I wanted to go. I had started going to some of their classes because they had like mindfulness, um, mindful eating, just different things, to learn about how to stay calm. Because when you get cancer, it's only when you get cancer that you're told eliminate stress from your life. See, other than that, I was a workhorse. So I started practicing, mindfulness and just being aware of my body from my feet to my head. And I was like, oh, this kind of work. And then I remember, okay, this was before I met you. Okay. So, because I was going to say, you told me to drink some stuff, but that was after that. But anyway, so I realized that just thinking about my whole body, I was connecting to myself. I didn't even realize I was disconnected from myself.